Hello, I'm Pam Dettelbach. Some people know me as Mrs. D or Aunt Pam or just Pam. It's getting close to Purim time, so today I'm going to show you how to make my favorite recipe of Hamentaschen. First, we can talk about Purim and how it is a great holiday with lots of celebrations, and Queen Esther is the heroine. On Purim, we make noise with groggers whenever the evil, I hate to say his name, Haman's name is mentioned. So we have a couple of samples of groggers. I believe most of these we bought in Israel. Hamentaschen is a Yiddish word, means Haman's hat, because it's disrespectful to eat somebody's hat. So that's why we make cookies that look like Haman's hat. We're going to start with our ingredients. Oh, first, the cookbook that I'm using is from Temple B'nai Shalom's Sisterhood, and this recipe is from Rabbi Amy Perlin's family. I guess I'll list the ingredients. You start with a half a cup of unsalted butter or margarine, a half a cup of Crisco, 1 3/4 cup sugar, a half a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of vanilla, a teaspoon of baking soda, 2 eggs, 4 1/2 cups flour, plus a little bit extra for rolling, a 1/4 cup orange juice, which to me is always the unusual ingredient. So that makes up the dough. Then for fillings, we aren't always conventional. We do have apricot, which is a lot of people's favorite. My favorite is prune. A new favorite from a couple of years ago is lemon curd, and boy, does it make a delicious Hamentaschen. Then sometimes peanut butter and jelly, or peanut butter chips and chocolate chips mixed together. We use strawberry jam, and I'm trying to think of anything else that we put. Oh, some people, including the Goldman family, who I've baked Hamentaschen with many times, like miniature marshmallows and chocolate chips. Marshmallows kind of flatten, but they are tasty. So that is another thing to try. And we're going to try this year chocolate and coconut, kind of like macaroon. Yay! So we're going to get started. This dough comes together a little bit unusual, but if you follow the directions, it works out just fine. So we start with our sugar. Then we're going to add 2 eggs. I always like to break it in a separate bowl so I don't get any shell in 1 egg. I always use cage-free eggs. It's my one thing I try to do with being humane. I got a smidgen of shell, but if you use the shell itself to scoop it out, it works out perfect. So there's our eggs. Now we're going to add, I got my apron. We need our vanilla, which is 1 teaspoon. The salt, see, this is an unusual way to mix everything, but it always works. A half a teaspoon of salt. And our baking soda, which is a teaspoon. Okay, so we mix this all together. It's going to take a couple minutes. The vanilla always smells so good. So once this is incorporated, you can see now it just looks like a beautiful golden dough. We're going to pour in the orange juice. And you think, oh my goodness, this is going to curdle everything, which it does, but it still works out. Okay. Try to incorporate the orange juice. Now this is where it gets messy. We're going to add the butter and the shortening, which I cut up the butter to have it come to room temperature a little quicker, and the shortening is there. And dump it all in. And this is the part that takes a little bit of time, working this butter and shortening together into this liquid. I'm going to say liquid mess. So Purim is always been one of my favorite holidays because we get to get dressed up in costumes for the reading of the Megillah. A lot of people love to dress as Queen Esther because she's so beautiful, or Queen Vashti because she's such a strong personality. And of course, there's cousin or Uncle Mordecai, who helps Esther come to the decision to go to the king. King Ahasuerus, who always has a party going on. So Purim is a very fun holiday. I often had dressed up as the baker of Shushan, which is a town in Persia where the story takes place, or a gardener. But I always make Hamentaschen. When our daughters were little, they would help. And then as they grew up and moved out, I would often have different TBS Sunday school children help. Or last year, I had Temple House of Israel student Eliana help bake Hamentaschen. And they were delicious. Now, because I'm going to be sharing Hamentaschen with different local families here, I might have to have Brian help since the COVID virus. I can't have anybody else in the house.
Uh-oh.
I'm sure he will be fine. The forming of the Hamentaschen is something he can handle. So you can see this takes a while to come together because you got to get this shortening and butter all incorporated before we add the flour. Because Purim is a fun holiday, and often you can not really play jokes on people, but one year our cantorial soloist sang all the prayers to Christmas Carol music, which was very unusual, and everybody laughed. I think that was the year that the temple gave out frisbees for presents when somebody had a birthday. And I thought for sure someone would sail a frisbee across the sanctuary, but no one was ever that silly. Oftentimes people have Purim spiels, which is like a little play acting out the Purim story, and incorporate that into a musical theme, and they're always very fun. And it's, of course, exciting to see the talent of your friends. All right, this is getting close. I'm just breaking up the large clumps. Okay, smash the sides. I tried one time making the dough in the traditional way, mixing the butter with the shortening and sugar ahead of time, and it just did not turn out the same. So I follow the recipe, even though it's a little time consuming. We're almost there. Fine, you don't have to hold up that camera. Didn't think I could have put Purim music on in the background.
3.
Okay, I've been stirring a while. I got most of the lumps out, not all, but most. So now it's time to add the flour. Now it calls for 4.5 cups. Seems like I add a few couple cups and stir it and then add a little bit more. So there's a 1/2 cup. There's a whole cup. All right, so we got 1.5 in here. I'll stir this, then I'll add some more. So I was talking about sharing some of these Hamentaschen. It's traditional to give little gift baskets called shalak manos, which so that your neighbors are assured of having treats to help share in the Purim meal. Some people put nuts in them or clementines. I think we added last year. Usually I just give cookies. All right, so that's getting incorporated. So I'm going to add another cup. So that's 1.5 cups. So now this is 2 and 2.5. And carefully beginning so we don't get flour splattering all over.
How did you celebrate 2nd grade teaching at Purim?
So there was always a Purim carnival and often a Purim assembly. And most of the students would come in costumes, or we would make masks so that way everybody could have some type of costume. And we would read a shortened version of the Megillah with the 2nd graders. And of course, I'm trying to think if I always would bring cookies because we didn't have an oven at Hamentaschen. So everybody would get Hamentaschen to eat for snack time. All right, so 2.5. So this makes 3 cups of flour so far. The dough needs to be firm enough because we're going to be rolling it. So generally what I do is after I get it all mixed up, refrigerate the dough for a little while before rolling.
That dough looks like a deer.
Not yet. Thank you, dear.
Thank you. See?
We're getting there.
I'm excited about the chocolate coconut versions this year.
That'll be a new one. I hope it turns out. Adding a little more. Getting pretty firm. I think sometimes it depends a little bit on the weather, how well it absorbs. If I need to use the full 4.5 cups.
Can you toss it like a pizza dough?
Not yet. That might be fun to do if we get the snowstorm tomorrow. Make it do. All right, a little bit more. I enjoy baking, but sometimes it's not as pretty as you would hope.
It just matters how the end tastes.
That's right. It's not going to take much more flour. And then after we chill the dough a little bit, we'll roll it out in circles, put a little filling, and show you how you turn them into triangles.
But not the triangles that are musical instruments.
Triangles that are even fat.
Boo!
Sometimes you just got to finish the mixing with your hand. And then I'll wrap it in plastic wrap for an hour or so, or even you could leave it in the refrigerator overnight. And if you don't get it firm enough, it won't roll easy. Okay, I'm thinking this has enough flour in it. Okay, so I'm going to take this and wrap it in plastic and refrigerate it for about an hour or so. And I will be back with you to show you the rolling and the filling. Hello, I'm back. The dough has chilled for about an hour. I'm going to put some flour on our rolling surface. This is half the dough. The other one is, I broke it in half. When we roll, I don't know, I just eyeball it, but I'm going to guess it's going to be around quarter of an inch. I'm going to break this in here. It's pretty soft. Often I'll refrigerate it overnight. I have greased cookie sheets. And I kind of turn the dough to make sure it isn't sticking to the surface and also get it even. And I kind of like that, which is probably, maybe it's an 8. I have a simple round cutter. This was called a biscuit cutter, so just and I'll cut a bunch of circles, and then we're going to transform it into a triangle.
While Pam's doing that, some Purim factoids. It is rumored that Esther was vegetarian, or at least a flexitarian, according to Midrash. Because while she lived in the court of King Ahasuerus, she followed a vegetarian diet consisted largely of legumes, so she would not break kosher kashrut laws, dietary laws. So for this reason, although not necessarily in all households, there is a tradition of eating beans and peas on Purim.
Thank you, Brian. I didn't know that. Generally what I do, so they don't get mixed up, the lemon curd, when it's baked, looks a lot like the apricot. I'm using apricot now. So I'll do a whole pan full of apricot, and the same with the prune and the chocolate. I'll do a whole platter or cookie sheet full of one flavor or the other. That way it's easier to tell them apart. I put a little dab in the middle. I pinch 2 back corners and then the middle corner and kind of double pinch them so only a little peeks through.
We want to hold it up. The next one.
So we start with the circle. Put a little bit in the middle, which is probably a half a teaspoon. Otherwise it'll overflow. Then think of like this as being 2 back corners and 1 front corner, and gently pinch. It's only a little bit peeks through.
Which is your favorite flavor?
So my favorite is prune, which nobody else in the house likes.
Oh my God.
So again, pinch. If Brian wasn't holding the camera, I would make him do one. I've taught many people how to do this with mixed success. Some people catch on right away. I have 1 or 2 students that never really got it, but that's okay. All right, so I'm going to pop this in the oven Oh, my recipe thing went away, but I think I do it for 15 minutes. I'll be right back. All right, I got my timer. Now, the cookbook says 25 minutes. I think that's way too long. That must be for really fat cookies. I'm going to stick with 15 minutes and we will check. All right, so since I have one platter full of apricot, let's do some chocolate for Brian.
Yay. Sometimes you do chocolate and peanut butter.
I could, but do you want me to do that first?
No, that's fine.
So what I thought, this is going to be new this year, we'll put a few chocolate chips, not too many, and then I'm going to put a little drizzle of this ganache, because I think that'll make it pretty. All right. What do you gotta be careful?
Do you have a special recipe on how to make ganache?
So I made it with a special recipe. It was called chocolate brownie cake. And the frosting, this ganache, it was just chocolate chips that you first microwaved whipping cream, just liquid whipping cream. And then you poured in chocolate chips and stirred until it melted. And it seemed to be pretty good.
That sounds good to me.
I used it as frosting, and then last night I used some of the leftover and tried to make a hot fudge sundae.
How'd it go?
With mixed results. Now I got it. I'll be right back, or so I can just use this. Okay. I'm just gonna make a couple of peanut butter chocolate for Brian. Or for whoever else. At the end, I'm gonna take some cookies to Valley Mission Homeless Shelter, but please contact me if you're local and I will gladly give you some cookies because there's gonna be more than enough Hamentaschen.
What about people that want to drive down for a day for Northern Virginia just to pick up your Hamentaschen?
I don't think that would really be worth there and back. What would that be? Almost 5 hours of driving, Brian? There and back.
They could stop at Route 11 to get potato chips.
Well, we could meet them halfway somewhere. All right, so that's all those circles. Now, I'm gonna roll the dough again. Now, I typically only do this twice because the dough gets tough. And at the end,
Does it get jelly?
no, it's tough.
Did you know, Pammy, that the book of Esther is one of just 2 biblical books that do not include God's name? The other one, the Song of Songs. The book of Esther also makes no reference to the temple, to prayer, or to Jewish practices such as kashrut, keeping kosher.
Wow.
Some would say I'm a veritable font of information.
Well, thank you for sharing these facts with us. All right. Now this one has a lot of filling. I'm a little worried it's going to explode, but when they're not pretty, that's when Brian gets to eat them. All the pretty ones we try to give away.
Brian will eat anything. Except peas and beans.
You have eaten lentils on occasion. If they're spicy enough, right?
Yes.
As I said before, Goldman's liked it with marshmallows, but the marshmallows just need it. All right, so I'm gonna go pop this in the oven too, because I have 2 racks. I'll be back. First batch is out of the oven. I'm glad I sent it only for 15 minutes because look at how perfect they look. It smells just incredible.
It smells heavenly to me.
So I'm going to slide these on this platter because I think I'm going to have to check on them very quickly. But I will go ahead and try to roll out a little bit more dough. This was the end of that. I will set it aside and mix it with the other dough. Let's put this out.
Tammy, did you know that Hamentaschen might have been designed to symbolize, besides Haman's hat, his ears or pockets?
I forgot I did hear about the ears.
Some say these cookies represent Haman's ears because the Hebrew name for them, Osnei Haman, means just this.
Oh, that's right, Osnei.
And refer to a custom of cutting off a criminal's ears before his execution.
Ew.
There was an eye for an eye in those days. Another theory is that the 3 corners represent the 3 patriarchs whose power weakened Haman and gave strength to Esther to save the Jews. Yet another theory, because the German word Tasch means pouch or pocket, the cookies could signify Haman's pockets and the money he offered the king for permission to kill the Jews.
Oh, I didn't remember him was offering to pay. Spare. All right, so these, we did chocolate. Maybe I'll make these lemon curd.
That's a good one. Lemon is good.
Yeah. No, I got it. Actually, you're gonna, I really gotta go peek at this other batch because I don't want them to get burned. Right back. Good thing I went when I did. The chocolate and chocolate peanut butter ones are done.
Mmm.
And
Oh,
again,
they
the
look
smell
good.
is
Perfectly
amazing.
brown.
So that's good. Now we'll do this lemon one. Remind me, maybe I should ask for Mother's Day for another cookie. Sorry, here.
I can almost smell the lemon.
Yeah, I don't know what made me think of it. Boy, they might.
I thought of it.
You might have. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've been doing it a few years.
Did you know that the Book of Esther may be an adaptation of a Babylonian story? Some scholars argue that the Book of Esther adapted stories about pagan gods, Marduk becoming Mordecai, and Ishtar transferred to Esther to reflect the realities of its own Jewish authors in exile.
Because yeah, I always thought that it's a, a historical story.
Well, I believe in the Megillah.
Yeah, I wonder if Megillah Gorilla was created by Jews.
That could have been a Hanna-Barbera.
I know, but it seems so funny that there'd be because you got to read the whole Megillah. All right, so there's 6 more. I'm going to go pop in the oven, and then hopefully the cookie sheets are cool. And I'll be right back. I'm going to set the timer this time for 12 minutes. That way it'll give me an extra minute or 2 to get in there. All right. Should I make a second sheet of the lemon curd or should I go for my prunes?
I would go, prune is your favorite. I would go for the prune. Did any of our daughters, lovely daughters, like the prunes?
I don't remember them liking, but now that they're adults, they might. I think part of the reason that I like this, because my father's mother, Grandma Selma Girding, used to make a prune-filled cookie that I loved. Prunes get a bad rap. They're good for you and sweet. Okay. Because the prune's messy, I did it this way. Now, let's see if I can get them in.
Honeybun, did you know that Purim is celebrated one day later inside walled cities than it is everywhere else? The book of Esther differentiates between Jews who lived and fought their enemies for 2 days within the walled capital city of Shushan, and those who lived in unwalled towns, where only 1 day was needed to subdue the enemy. The rabbis determined we should make that same distinction when memorializing the event. Accordingly, if a person lives in a city that has been walled since the days of Joshua, and I don't think Stanton or Springfield meets the definitions, which is circa 1250 BCE, as Shushan was, Purim is celebrated on the 15th of the month of Adar, a day referred to as Shushan Purim.
So I'm confused because in the story of Esther, there's no real fighting. She stops Haman king before he kills the Jews. So that's a confusing factoid to me.
Well, we'll have to look it up. I didn't verify the factoids, but
that's fine. Okay. And Purim falls in Adar,
yes,
which is the only month that has a leap month. So sometimes you have Adar 1 and Adar 2. But I forget, I think Purim always comes in the first Adar, but I don't remember.
well,
That's a question to the rabbi.
well, if you're patient,
Oh, or the internet.
if you're patient, I think I have something about that.
All right.
Just give me a second.
Can I go pop this in the oven while you do that?
Honey, of course.
All right, here's the batch of prune. And I have the lemon curd over there. Now I'm going to do some chocolate, what do we say? Chocolate coconut for Brian.
Like a mounds bar.
Like a mounds bar. Okay. Now let's see if this will turn out. Chocolate. This chocolate ganache, I will say, smells really good.
We've done apple before.
That's true.
Apple
We have done
dumplings.
apple. The apple we did was, I cheated and bought apple pie filling. No, cheating, but anyway, but the apple chunks were always so big, I had to cut them in half to fit inside a Hamentaschen. But you always liked them.
Definitely.
I think Brian might have one more factoid about Adar.
Oh, that's right. You had a question about Adar,
I
right?
had a question about Adar
So-
because I know that sometimes there's two. And then, they used to say, be happy, it's Adar.
The Jewish calendar has a regular leap year with 2 months of Adar, but only one Purim, which falls during the second Adar.
Oh,
To ensure that the holidays remain in their mandated seasons, the Jewish calendar was ingeniously adjusted to accommodate the 11-day difference between the lunar and solar years. In the 4th century CE, Hillel scheduled an extra month at the end of the biblical year as necessary. The biblical year begins in spring with Nisan, Exodus 12, and ends with Adar. Hillel, in conjunction with the Sanhedrin, the Jewish Supreme Court, chose to repeat Adar. Adar 1 and Adar 2 every 3rd, 6th, 8th, 11th, 14th, 17th, 19th year over 19-year period. Who would have thought? but it is ingenious.
Well, I'm glad I don't have to keep track of it.
Now that's why you have Google calendars.
Okay. I guess I have more dough in the refrigerator, but I will do that off camera. And we'll show the finished product of all the Hamentaschen after I do that. You don't need to keep seeing how to fold these Hamentaschen. Squeeze the back two corners and the front one. Squeeze again and again so they don't come open. Because so far, none have come open.
No, they all look the same, but all a little different. They're all each individuals.
Like so.
By the way, we improvised. We have a 4-foot yardstick on a chair, and I put my little camera on top of that, so you can see pan and better table and the ingredients. So we have necessity is the mother of invention, right?
That's right.
So for future shows,
Hopefully they will all look as nice. Okay, I'm gonna go pop this in the oven. See you all later. At the end of the afternoon of baking, this is how many Hamentaschen you get. I think it's plenty to share with our neighbors and the Valley Mission homeless shelter. And then also we'll have leftovers. Please contact us. We'd love for you to swing by and pick up some.